Hello, my name is Matthew Hunter with Legacy Wilderness Academy, and in this video I'm going to show you a common wild plant that's a natural pain reliever and a powerful sleep aid. Species of this plant are widespread and can be found on every continent in the world except Antarctica, so there's a good chance there's some growing near you. The plant is called wild lettuce. Unlike store-bought lettuce, which has been bred for its taste, texture, and shelf life, wild lettuce has a bitter taste and useful medicinal qualities. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to identify wild lettuce. We'll talk about its medicinal uses, then I'll show you exactly how to prepare it into a medicine that's easy to make right from home. Stay tuned. Before we begin, I'll quickly mention that if you want to learn more about medicinal plants of the southeastern U.S., make sure that after this video you download my free guide to medicinal plants, which you can find in the link in the description below this video. In my home state of Louisiana, there are about 7 species of wild lettuce, 5 native and 2 introduced, and all of them are safe to use. You don't have to know which one is which to be able to use them, but over time it does help to learn your local species so that as you begin experimenting, you can learn the slight differences in taste and strength between each one. So here are a couple wild lettuce plants. It's July right now, and as you can see, I have to point the camera up because these are well over 6 feet tall. They're about 8 or almost 9 feet tall. So some wild lettuce species only grow to about knee or waist high, but others can get upwards of 9 feet or almost 3 meters tall. Wild lettuce has leaves with deep lobes. It's often confused with plants in the same family like dandelion or sow thistle, but at maturity there's almost no mistaking it because dandelion usually doesn't grow past your ankle, and I've never seen a sow thistle taller than about knee or waist high at the most. Whereas the wild lettuce in my area regularly reaches heights of 6 or more feet, or about 2 meters at maturity. The flowers of wild lettuce are produced in large clusters at the top of the plant. They're usually yellow or bluish depending on the species. They're small, somewhat reminiscent of dandelions being in the same family as that plant, and as they mature, they turn into little puffs just like a dandelion. Another distinct feature of wild lettuce is that when broken, it exudes copious amounts of sap. Depending on the species, the sap is usually either white or an orangish brown color, and the color of sap can help differentiate one species of wild lettuce from another. Here in this little area, we have at least 2 species of wild lettuce. The one we looked at with the yellow flowers, I believe, is the Canada lettuce, or Lactuca canadensis, which is identified by its brownish sap, yellow flowers, and leaf lobes that taper to a long point, as well as a couple other technical features that I won't go into. And the second species, which I'll have to confirm when it starts flowering, I believe is the woodland lettuce, or Lactuca floridana, which has white sap and should have blue flowers, if I'm correct on the species. You'll notice it matures a lot later than the Canada lettuce, which has already flowered and went to seed, whereas this one, most of the plants are still in their sort of leafy stage and haven't even produced flowers yet. Next, we'll look at the medicinal uses of wild lettuce. But before we do, I'll mention that besides just being medicinal, the young leaves of wild lettuce are edible as well, with some species being more intensely bitter and others being more mildly bitter. In my opinion, it's not a plant that you'll usually want to eat raw, besides maybe throwing it sparingly into salads, but it can be a tasty ingredient in cooked dishes that call for bitter herbs. So to use it as a food, you'll want to harvest the young growing tips or shoots that can be harvested from the top of the plant throughout a large part of the spring. Next, let's talk about the medicinal uses of wild lettuce. These plants have been used for thousands of years for their sedative and pain-relieving effects. One of the earliest accounts of this plant being used as a medicine comes to us from around 50 AD from the Greek physician and botanist Dioscorides, who wrote that wild lettuce was, in general, soporiferous and easing of pain. Actually, it was originally written in Greek, but that 1600s English translation means that it was sleep-inducing and pain-relieving, 2 of the same things we use it for today. Up through the ages, herbalists have used this plant for these 2 purposes all the way up through the Middle Ages and into the modern period, where doctors in the 1800s were using it, and then into the modern day. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 main areas where wild lettuce is going to be the most useful. The first is as a sedative for sleep and anxiety. People in the modern day talk mostly about its pain-relieving effects, but where wild lettuce really shines is in its ability to relax and sedate the nervous system. It works as an anxiolytic, a plant that reduces anxiety, as well as a sleepy time plant for insomnia. The second area where this plant really shines, and it's related to its pain-relieving properties, is as a cough sedative. Wild lettuce is great for relieving the painful spasms of a cough and can really help knock out the cough reflex when a cough is keeping you up at night. And because it's a more mild plant, it's a great option for children for this purpose as well. Third, wild lettuce is a mild pain reliever. Now we need to keep in mind that some modern sources incorrectly state that this plant can be used like morphine or opium. It doesn't have anywhere near the pain relieving qualities of that plant. However, ancient authors and medical doctors in the 1800s alike did compare it to opium. First, it has that white or brown sap, which is reminiscent of the opium poppy. And second, the sap was reported to smell like opium. So that's where some of the comparison comes from. And then third, its properties were said by some to be similar to opium, but just a much weaker version. So don't think of it as a strong pain reliever because it's not. But that being said, the respected herbalist Sam Kaufman wrote in his book Herbal Medic that, quote, though many herbs can help alleviate pain, it's difficult to achieve the same level of pain relief as one can with pharmaceuticals. Wild lettuce is one of those herbs that comes close for a lot of people, end quote. So even though it's more mild, some people do experience results using wild lettuce for pain, especially things like musculoskeletal pain or injury, body aches, things like that. Just keep in mind that you may have to take quite a bit to get its effects, and due to its sedative properties, there's a good chance that it's going to make you sleepy as well. Next, let's look at how to prepare wild lettuce into a medicine. So to do this, we can use the whole above ground part of the plant, leaves and stalks. And one of the ways that wild lettuce was prepared a lot in the 1800s and still today is by making a concentrated extract of the sap called lacticarium. The way that this is typically made is by boiling multiple batches of wild lettuce in a pot of water until it's super strong, then boiling that liquid down and eventually dehydrating it in the sun in shallow pans until all that's left is a blackish tar-like substance. So that's the lacticarium. Now, most beginners probably won't want to do that process their first time. So today I'm going to show you how to make a simple double alcohol extract or tincture by soaking the plant in alcohol 2 times. Normally to do this, we would just do one soak by letting it sit in alcohol and then straining it out after a few weeks. But because wild lettuce is such a mild medicine, we're going to make it stronger by soaking it once, then taking that saturated alcohol and using it to extract a second round of the fresh plant material. Let's do it. All right, so I went ahead and harvested 4 Canadian lettuce plants, and most sources agree that the best time to harvest wild lettuce for its medicinal strength is going to be when it first starts to flower. So you can see here these 2 flower clusters are young and immature. They're still in their growing phase, just starting to flower. There wasn't a whole lot in this stage, so I did have to harvest one that was a little bit later than I would have liked it. So here's what a more mature head looks like. You can see that some of the flowers have already started to go to seed. You can see the dried remnants of some of the flowers there. So this is still going to have some strength to it, but it's not ideal. Next, I'm going to go ahead and chop these up, and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. The next step is to go ahead and add our alcohol, and then I'll be putting it in a blender and blending it up to expose the surface area and extract a lot of the sap. But I didn't want to put the alcohol when it was already in the blender because I don't want to risk putting too much. We want just enough alcohol to barely cover the plant. And the type of alcohol we're going to be using is 95% or 190 proof pure grain alcohol. The brand most of you are going to be familiar with is Everclear. So this is not rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. This is alcohol that we bought at the liquor store. And for me, I'm going to use the strongest strength I have available. If you live in some states, you may not have 190 proof, but you can get the strongest strength you have available. Or obviously, you know, really any type of alcohol strength will work for this. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it in and cover it to the top. Actually, I'm going to stop about halfway, and then once it's blended, I'll see if that's enough, and I can always add a little bit more after it's blended. Okay, I almost don't even need to add any more alcohol. It was like the perfect amount. It's like right there at the top. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more. I mean, really just a splash, just to make sure it's fully covering the herb. And now at this point, because this is a double extract, normally if this was a regular tincture, we would go ahead and cap it, and then we would let it sit for, you know, anywhere from 7 to 10 days all the way up to a few weeks. We'd strain it out and we'd be finished. But this is a double extract. We want to make it twice as strong as we normally would. So for this, you have some options. You can let it sit just for a quick 24 hours. If you want to do it the right way, you can let it sit for a good 7 days, strain this out, and then you're going to use that saturated alcohol, the finished tincture, to make another one. So you're going to use that and take another load of fresh plant material, do the same process again, and then strain it out, and then you'll be finished. But what I'm going to do for this, just for the sake of expediency, is I'm going to wait 24 hours, strain it out, and then do a second batch of plant material. All right, now that it's been about 24 hours, I'm going to go ahead and strain it through this nut milk bag. As you can see, even though we didn't wait the ideal length of time, it was still able to extract a decent amount of constituents. All right, so here I've added a second round of fresh plants to the jar. I went back out in the field today, got some more. So I'll go ahead and pour this in. And we'll go ahead and blend it and see what that looks like. All right, we'll go ahead and pour this back into the jar. So what I do with my tinctures is press the plant material down to see if I can get the alcohol level just above the plant material. And you can see with this, it's almost there, but not quite. So I'm just going to add a little bit more alcohol to top it off. All right, now this can be capped up, and we can let this sit from anywhere to 7 to 10 days, all the way up to 3 or 4 weeks. And then we can strain it out just like we did the first time. Next, let's talk about dosage. So here I have a wild lettuce percolation tincture that I made with the dried plant. And obviously when it comes to dosage, it's going to depend on the strength of the preparation, the individual person, and what they plan to use it for. But keeping in mind that wild lettuce is generally considered a very safe plant for 99% of people, unless you have some sort of weird allergy for it, a good place to start is going to be in between 1/2 to 1 teaspoon. So 1/2 teaspoon is about 2 dropperfuls from your standard, tincture bottle, and 1 full teaspoon is about 4 or 5 dropperfuls. So, for my friends and family, I would recommend, if they were using it for sleep, I would say, maybe try 1 dropperful to start, or a 1/4 teaspoon. And then if it doesn't work that first night, move up to, 2 dropperfuls. And that probably should work to help them, feel relaxed before they go to bed. For something like pain, I may recommend taking, higher doses of it, maybe 1 full teaspoon, and that can be taken multiple times a day. Keeping in mind that you can't separate the sedative effects from the pain relieving effects. So it is probably going to make the person feel a little bit tired, but taking it throughout the day, every few hours even, is going to be totally safe with this plant, again, for most people. So that's how I would dose this plant for my friends and family. Well guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, if you want to learn more about the medicinal plants of the southeastern US, don't forget to get my free guide in the link in the description below. Have a great day.